There we go. Okay.
There is something living in our oceans right now that shouldn't exist. Not according to the laws we understand, not according to the biology we've studied for centuries. It has a brain 5 times the size of yours. It can see without light. It survives pressures that would liquefy your bones in seconds. And inside its skull is an organ filled with oil that science still doesn't fully understand. For over 200 years, we've hunted them, studied them, dissected them, and yet we still can't answer the most fundamental question. What are they actually doing down there? Because every 90 minutes, sperm whales descend into a world we've barely glimpsed, a realm of total darkness, crushing pressure, and creatures we're only beginning to discover. And when they're down there, sometimes for over an hour without a single breath, they're doing something we can't explain. They're screaming into the void with clicks so loud they could vibrate your body apart. They're hunting monsters in the dark, and according to the latest research, they might be communicating in ways that would require a level of intelligence we're not ready to accept. This isn't a story about whales. This is a story about an alien intelligence that's been living right here on Earth the entire time. The sperm whale is the largest toothed predator on Earth, 60 feet long, weighing up to 45 tons. When you first see one gliding through blue water near the surface, it almost seems peaceful, majestic even. Just another whale, another massive creature doing whale things in the ocean. But that's the trap, because the moment you think you understand what you're looking at, the sperm whale does something that shatters every assumption you've made. It points its head downward, and it drops. Not like a fish casually swimming deeper, not like a seal hunting for food. The sperm whale descends like a stone falling through the abyss, straight down, hundreds of meters per minute, falling through layers of ocean that most creatures will never see, past the sunlit zone, past the twilight zone, into the midnight zone, where sunlight hasn't reached in millions of years. And here's what makes absolutely no sense. It does this without any apparent effort. No frantic swimming, no visible struggle against the physics that should make this impossible. It just disappears into the dark and stays there for an hour, sometimes 90 minutes, on a single breath. When scientists first tracked these dives in the 1960s, they thought their equipment was malfunctioning. The numbers didn't make sense. Depths of over 2,000 meters, dive times approaching 2 hours for a mammal, an air-breathing creature with lungs just like ours. It violated everything we knew about physiology, about oxygen consumption, about pressure tolerance, about mammalian survival. But the instruments weren't broken. The sperm whale was doing exactly what the data showed. And when researchers finally began to accept these measurements as fact, they realized something deeply unsettling. We have been sharing the planet with these animals for all of human history, and we had no idea what they actually were. Because when you look closer at the sperm whale, nothing about it makes biological sense. Start with the head, that massive rectangular block that makes up 1/3 of its entire body length. It's not shaped like any other whale. It's not streamlined. It's not hydrodynamic. It looks like someone stuck a giant battering ram onto a normal whale's body. And inside that head, not brain, not muscle, not bone, oil. Gallons and gallons of a mysterious waxy substance called spermaceti, an organ so strange, so unlike anything else in nature that when whalers first discovered it, they thought they'd found the whale's reproductive fluid. That's how we got the name sperm whale, from a fundamental misunderstanding of an organ we still don't fully comprehend. And here's where the anomaly becomes impossible to ignore. This oil-filled chamber, this biological structure that exists nowhere else in the animal kingdom, sits directly in front of the whale's brain, the largest brain that has ever existed on Earth. Larger than any dinosaurs, larger than any elephants, larger than anything ever produced. 5 times heavier than a human brain. Think about that for a moment. 5 times. Not slightly bigger, not moderately larger, 5 times. What does a creature living in the ocean need with a brain that massive? What is it processing? What is it thinking about during those hour-long descents into total darkness? We don't know, but we're starting to realize we should probably be terrified of the answer. Because the sperm whale isn't just biologically anomalous. It's not just a weird evolutionary quirk. When you map out everything this creature can do, when you plot its capabilities against every other mammal on Earth, a pattern emerges. The sperm whale isn't adapted for ocean life. It's adapted for something else entirely. Let's start with that brain. The sperm whale's brain weighs approximately 17 pounds. For comparison, your brain weighs about 3 pounds. An elephant's brain, the second largest on Earth, weighs around 11 pounds. But size alone doesn't tell the full story. Because when neurologists finally got their hands on preserved sperm whale brain tissue, what they found wasn't just a scaled-up version of a normal mammalian brain. The structure was different. The organization was different, particularly in one specific area, the neocortex. The neocortex is where complex thinking happens, abstract reasoning, social awareness, self-recognition. In humans, it's the most developed region of our brain. It's what makes us, us. And in sperm whales, the neocortex has structural elaborations we've never seen in any other species. Specialized cells, unique neural architectures, configurations that neuroscientists still can't fully decode. Here's what we know. The parts of the sperm whale's brain associated with processing sound, with social bonding, with emotional response, they're not just larger than ours, they're exponentially more complex. Which raises an uncomfortable question that most scientists won't ask directly. What if sperm whales are smarter than we are? Not in the ways we measure intelligence, not in tool use or problem solving, but in ways we can't measure, in forms of cognition so alien to human experience that we don't even have the framework to test for them. And before you dismiss that as speculation, consider what they're doing with that brain. They're navigating a 3-dimensional environment of total darkness using only sound. They're maintaining complex social relationships across thousands of miles of open ocean. They're coordinating hunts in the deep sea where no light has ever penetrated. And they're doing all of this while managing a body that operates under physical conditions that would kill us in seconds. Which brings us to the next impossibility. 2,000 meters, that's over 6,000 feet. For perspective, that's deeper than the Grand Canyon is tall. At that depth, the pressure is approximately 200 times what you're experiencing right now. 200 atmospheres pressing in from every direction. If you were somehow transported to that depth, instantly, your lungs would collapse, your ribcage would fracture, the air spaces in your body would compress so violently that you'd essentially implode. And yet sperm whales descend to these depths multiple times every single day. Some individuals make over 30 dives daily, spending more time in the crushing deep than they do at the surface. How? The answer involves a physiological adaptation so extreme it seems like science fiction. Sperm whales don't just hold their breath during these dives, they shut down. Their heart rate drops from around 30 beats per minute to as low as 3 or 4. Blood flow is redirected away from 9 essential organs. Their ribcage actually collapses, allowing their lungs to compress completely, preventing nitrogen from dissolving into their bloodstream and causing the bends. They're basically inducing a controlled near-death state, then reversing it 30 times a day for their entire lives. And here's what makes it even more insane. They're doing this for up to 90 minutes at a time, an hour and a half without breathing, while their body is under pressures that would crush a submarine. When scientists first tracked these dives in the 1960s, they thought their equipment was malfunctioning. The numbers didn't make sense. 90-minute dives at depths exceeding 2 kilometers. For a mammal, an air-breathing creature with lungs just like ours? It violated everything we knew about physiology, about oxygen consumption, about pressure tolerance, about mammalian survival.
But the instruments weren't broken. The sperm whale was doing exactly what the data showed. And when researchers finally began to accept these measurements as fact, they had to confront an even more disturbing reality. If sperm whales can do this, what else have we gotten wrong about the limits of biology? But the pressure problem is only half the equation. Because even if you could somehow survive being crushed at 2,000 meters, you'd face an even more fundamental issue. You can't see anything. At around 200 meters deep, sunlight effectively disappears. At 500 meters, it's completely, utterly black. The kind of darkness that doesn't exist anywhere on land. A darkness so absolute that the concept of vision becomes meaningless. And this is where sperm whales live. This is their hunting ground. This is where they spend the majority of their existence, in total, absolute darkness. So how do they navigate? How do they find food? How do they find each other in an environment where eyes are useless? The answer is more terrifying than you'd think.
Sound. But not just any sound, the loudest biological sound ever recorded on Earth. Sperm whale clicks have been measured at over 230 decibels. To put that in perspective, a jet engine at takeoff is around 140 decibels. A gunshot is around 160. The sperm whale's echolocation click is so loud that if you were swimming next to one when it vocalized, the sound wave could vibrate your body hard enough to cause cellular damage. It could, theoretically, kill you. And they're producing these clicks constantly, rapid-fire bursts called click trains that fire off like a biological machine gun. These clicks travel through the water, bounce off objects in the environment, and return to the whale as echoes. The whale then processes these echoes through that massive brain, constructing a three-dimensional sonic map of everything around it. They can see a giant squid from over a kilometer away, in total darkness, through water, with nothing but sound. Think about what that means for a moment. You and I process the world through vision. Light bounces off objects, hits our retinas, and our brain constructs an image. It happens so fast, so automatically, that we don't even think about it. Now, imagine doing that with sound. Imagine screaming into the void and listening to the echo, then using only that information to build a complete picture of your surroundings. The shape of objects, their distance, their texture, their movement, all from sound waves. And doing it in 3 dimensions, while moving, while hunting, while coordinating with other members of your family. That's not just echolocation, that's a completely alien form of perception.
But here's where it gets truly bizarre. That spermaceti organ, that massive chamber of oil in their head, it's not just dead weight. It's not just buoyancy control. Scientists now believe it functions as a biological acoustic lens. The oil can change temperature, change density, and when it does, it changes how sound waves propagate through it. The whale can apparently adjust the properties of this organ to focus its echolocation clicks into a targeted beam, like a biological spotlight made of sound. Some researchers go even further. They propose that sperm whales might be able to focus their clicks so intensely, concentrate so much acoustic energy into a single point that they could actually stun or even kill their prey with sound alone. Imagine that. A creature that hunts by screaming at its prey until it dies. There's no confirmed evidence of this yet, but mathematical models suggest it's physically possible. The energy required exists within their vocal capability. The focusing mechanism exists in their anatomy. And when you consider what they're hunting,
Suddenly, the idea of a sonic weapon doesn't seem so far-fetched. Because what lives down there in the midnight zone? What exists in that crushing darkness that's worth such an extreme adaptation? Monsters. The giant squid, colossal squid, species with eyes the size of dinner plates and tentacles stretching over 40 feet. Animals we've barely ever seen alive. Animals so elusive that until 2004, we'd never captured one on film in its natural habitat. Creatures that seem like they belong in nightmares, not in our oceans. Sperm whales eat them regularly. Scientists estimate that a single sperm whale can consume over a ton of squid per day. Think about that. A ton, 2,000 pounds of squid every single day. And they're finding this prey in an environment we can barely explore with our most advanced technology. An environment that's more alien to us than the surface of Mars. But the real mystery isn't what they're hunting, it's how they're coordinating. Because sperm whales don't hunt alone. They live in tight-knit family groups called pods. Usually consisting of females and their offspring, these pods can contain anywhere from 10 to 30 individuals. And they stay together for life. Females rarely leave their natal pod. They raise their young collectively. They defend each other. They share food, and they communicate. This is where everything we thought we understood about sperm whales completely falls apart. Because those clicks, the ones they use for echolocation, they're not the only sounds sperm whales make. They also produce patterns of clicks called codas, rhythmic sequences that vary between different pods, different regions, different oceans. And here's the part that disturbs the scientists. These codas aren't random. They're structured. They follow patterns. They have syntax. Researchers have identified distinct dialects in sperm whale populations from different parts of the world. Pods from the Caribbean don't sound like pods from the Pacific. And it's not just accent, it's vocabulary. Different click patterns. Different sequences, different meanings. In 2024, a team of researchers using advanced machine learning algorithms analyzed years of sperm whale recordings. What they found suggests that these codas might function as an actual language, not just emotional vocalizations, not just identification calls, but a combinatorial communication system where the meaning changes based on the order and timing of the clicks. They might be talking. With a grammar, with a lexicon, with the ability to convey complex, abstract information. Let that sink in for a moment. While you've been living your life, going to work, scrolling through your phone, there have been conversations happening in the ocean. Conversations in a language we don't understand. Conversations between minds we can't comprehend. Conversations about things we can't even imagine. And if that's true, if sperm whales have language, then what are they saying during those hour-long dives into darkness? What are mothers teaching their calves? What information is being passed down through generations? What stories are they telling? Because here's the truly disturbing implication. Sperm whales demonstrate culture. Different pods have different hunting techniques, different social behaviors, different vocal traditions that are learned, not instinctive. A young whale doesn't automatically know its pod's coda pattern. It has to learn it from its mother, from its family, which means knowledge is being transmitted, preserved, evolved. Culture requires memory. It requires teaching. It requires a sense of identity that extends beyond the individual. It requires the understanding that you are part of something larger than yourself, something that existed before you and will continue after you're gone. It requires a theory of mind, the understanding that other individuals have thoughts, knowledge, and experiences separate from your own. The recognition that the whale swimming next to you isn't just an object or an instinct-driven automaton, but a thinking, feeling being with its own internal experience. We used to think only humans had this. Then we found it in great apes.
then dolphins, then elephants.
And now, sperm whales. But unlike those other species, sperm whales have had millions of years to develop their culture, millions of years of accumulated knowledge, millions of years of whatever passes for whale history, whale tradition, whale wisdom. Humans have had written language for maybe 5,000 years, civilization for perhaps 10,000. We think of ourselves as the pinnacle of knowledge accumulation on this planet. But sperm whales? Their lineage goes back 15 million years. 15 million years of brains larger than ours. 15 million years of social learning. 15 million years of mothers teaching daughters, who teach their daughters, in an unbroken chain stretching back to a time when our ancestors were still learning to walk upright. What does an intelligence that old know? What has it learned about the ocean, about survival, about existence itself? What does a species remember after 15 million years? We have no idea, because we can't ask them. All we can do is listen to their clicks echoing through the dark, watch them disappear into the abyss, and wonder what 17 pounds of brain is thinking about while the pressure of the deep sea presses in from all sides. But there's one final piece to this puzzle, one last pattern that emerges when you map everything we've discussed. And it changes everything.
Here's what we know for certain. Sperm whales have the largest brain ever to exist on Earth. They dive deeper and longer than almost any other mammal. They navigate and hunt in complete darkness using biological sonar more sophisticated than our best military technology. They possess an organ in their head that exists nowhere else in nature. And they communicate with what may be an actual language, passing down knowledge through cultural transmission across millions of years. Now here's what we don't talk about. None of this makes sense for an ocean animal. Think about it. Really think about it. Dolphins are intelligent. They have complex social structures. They use echolocation. But their brains are a fraction of the size of a sperm whale's, and they live in shallow, sunlit waters where they can see, where vision still works, where the evolutionary pressure for massive cognitive capacity is limited. Elephants have large brains. They demonstrate culture, emotional depth, complex communication, but they live on land, in social groups numbering in the dozens or hundreds, in environments rich with sensory information, surrounded by threats and opportunities that require constant decision-making. But sperm whales? They live in an environment that's essentially empty, dark, silent except for their own vocalizations. The deep ocean is a desert, a void. There's nothing down there except scattered prey and crushing pressure.
So why the massive brain? Why the cultural transmission? Why the language? You don't evolve the largest brain in Earth's history to hunt squid in the dark. You don't develop complex language to say there's food over here. You don't build generational knowledge systems to survive in an environment that hasn't changed in millions of years. Evolution is efficient, brutally so. Every adaptation costs energy. Every gram of brain tissue requires oxygen, nutrients, resources, and the sperm whale's brain is extraordinarily expensive. It burns through calories. It requires constant maintenance. It's a biological liability unless it provides a proportional advantage. But what advantage does a 17-pound brain provide in the empty darkness of the deep ocean? Here's the answer nobody wants to say out loud. We don't know what they're using it for. We can't figure out what evolutionary pressure would require that much cognitive capacity. We can't identify what problem in their environment demands that level of intelligence to solve.
Which means one of two things is true. Either we fundamentally misunderstand the deep ocean environment, and there's something happening down there in the dark that requires intelligence we can't fathom. Or sperm whales aren't using their brains for survival anymore. They evolved them,
millions of years ago, for reasons that made sense in a different ocean, a different world. And now they're simply living with them, thinking thoughts, having experiences, maintaining cultures and languages and social bonds because they can, because they have the cognitive capacity for it, because somewhere in their evolutionary history they crossed a threshold. The threshold where survival stopped being the only thing that mattered. The threshold where consciousness became something more than just a tool. And if that's true, then we need to confront something absolutely terrifying. There might be another intelligent species on Earth, one that we've been sharing the planet with for all of human history, one that has its own societies, its own knowledge, its own understanding of existence. And we've been killing them. For oil, for their spermaceti, for lamp fuel and industrial lubricants. We hunted them to near extinction in the 19th and 20th centuries, killed hundreds of thousands of them, destroyed entire populations, erased whatever knowledge they'd accumulated over millions of years. We did to them what we'd consider genocide if done to humans. And we didn't even know what we were destroying, because we couldn't imagine that something that alien, that different from us, could be intelligent, could be aware, could have inner lives as rich and complex as our own. We're only just beginning to understand what sperm whales might be, and we've already nearly erased them from existence.
There's a thought experiment in philosophy called the problem of other minds. It goes like this. You can never truly know if anyone else is conscious. You experience your own thoughts, your own feelings, your own awareness. But everyone else? They could be philosophical zombies, biological machines that look and act conscious but have no inner experience whatsoever. You assume other people are conscious because they're like you. They have similar brains, similar behaviors, similar reactions. But what about something that's nothing like you? What about a creature with a brain 5 times larger than yours, structured in ways you don't understand? A creature that experiences the world through sound instead of light, that lives in an environment you can't survive in, that communicates in patterns you can't decode. How do you recognize consciousness when it's that alien? For most of human history, we didn't. We couldn't. We looked at sperm whales and saw resources, meat, oil, things to be extracted and used. We never stopped to wonder what it felt like to be them.
But now we know enough to ask the question, and we don't have an answer. We don't know what a sperm whale experiences during those long descents into darkness. We don't know what it thinks about, what it feels, whether it has something we'd recognize as emotions or something entirely different. We don't know if they're aware of us, if they understand what we did to them, if the survivors carry some form of generational trauma passed down through their culture, like our own histories of violence and survival. We don't even know if they think about death. But here's what we do know. Right now, at this very moment, there are sperm whales diving into the abyss, descending through layers of crushing darkness with brains that dwarf our own, calling out to each other in languages we're only beginning to recognize as language. They're doing what they've done for 15 million years, thinking thoughts we can't imagine, living lives we can't comprehend, existing in a form of consciousness so different from ours that we don't have the framework to understand it. And that should humble us. Because we're not alone on this planet. We never have been. We're just the only ones arrogant enough to think we were. The ocean isn't empty. It isn't silent. It isn't just a resource to be exploited or a mystery to be solved. It's inhabited by minds, by cultures, by intelligence that evolved along a completely different path than ours, but arrived at something we're only now beginning to recognize as familiar. The sperm whale isn't an animal. It's a civilization, one that's been here longer than us, one that might outlast us, one that operates according to rules and values and experiences we may never fully understand. And perhaps that's the most important revelation of all.
that intelligence doesn't have to look like us to matter, that consciousness doesn't have to be human to be real, that there are forms of being, forms of thinking, forms of existence in this universe that we're only just beginning to glimpse. The sperm whale has been trying to tell us this for millions of years, screaming it into the dark with clicks loud enough to shatter our bones. Maybe it's time we finally learn to listen.